This is a very interesting kind of final point on the Sarah Palin defamation lawsuit. If you haven't been following this story, good for you. I mean, quite frankly, good for you. Former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, who was John McCain's vice presidential running mate in 2008, sort of like a precursor. She was Trump before Trump, just cartoony ignorance. And she sued the New York Times. She filed a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times in which she said the New York Times defamed her by linking her politics and her rhetoric with real world shootings. And Sarah Palin sued, arguing that it was defamation. Now, the trial was delayed, you might remember, because Sarah Palin caught COVID. Then she was spotted eating out at restaurants in New York City while COVID positive. I mean, just a gross, vile woman. But the big news is that a judge has thrown the lawsuit out. And somehow Fox News is still calling it a victory. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit. CNN reporting. Judge Jed Rakoff, the judge overseeing Sarah Palin's defamation suit, said Monday he will dismiss the suit, ruling Palin's team did not prove a key element of the case. Rakoff's ruling came while the jury was already deliberating. Rakoff said he will allow the jury to continue deliberating and to reach a verdict, and then will dismiss the case. Rakoff presented his findings, a very clear win for the New York Times, with an eye towards an inevitable appeals process. The judge said Palin did not prove actual malice, which is the standard her legal team had to meet in a defamation case. This goes back to the 1964 case, New York Times v. Sullivan, which specifies if you're a public figure and you sue for defamation, you have to prove that the offender knew the claim was false or showed reckless disregard for the truth. The Times said all along it made an error involving Palin. They issued a correction, but Palin argued the publication smeared her on purpose. Seemed like a big uphill battle to prove that, and Rakoff has now sided with the Times and said Palin's camp did not present a legally sufficient evidentiary basis, calling it unfortunate editorializing. So this is being dismissed. This is a loss for Sarah Palin. Fox News, which operates in opposite world, is calling it a win. Here's Martha McCallum, breaking news, interviewing Howard Kurtz. And Howard Kurtz says, well, it sort of is a win, though. I mean, take a listen to this.
Pardon me? Oh, Howie, don't go away. I've got another question for you, because we actually are just covering something that is breaking moments ago, and I mentioned this to Jeanine Pirro, and her jaw dropped. The judge has thrown out Sarah Palin's case.
Yeah. Judge Jeanine Pirro was just shocked at the judge's decision.
Against the New York Times, which was saying that they had defamed her by suggesting that her PAC had something to do with the shooting and killing of 6 people, including the injuring of Gabby Giffords. What's your reaction to this news?
Well, first of all, I think that Sarah Palin won this case in the court of public opinion, in that a lot of
no, she didn't. What are you talking about, Howie?
Very damaging material to the New York Times came out about this editorial accusing her of political incitement in a mass shooting in Arizona 6 years earlier. It has not made the New York Times look good. But it has always been the case that it would be very difficult for the former governor to win this suit because she's a public figure and there's a Supreme Court standard about having to prove malice or reckless disregard. What I don't completely understand.
I love how in this case they act as if the law as written is like a technicality that's just inconvenient for Sarah Palin, even though like her claims are completely true. This is all the time they say, this is the law. This is the standard. We respect the law. And he's saying, yeah, based on the law, it's not defamation, but he's acting like it's some kind of unfair technicality, but really Sarah Palin won.
Because this is just breaking, is why the judge would send the case to the jury, then say, well, she hasn't proven the case as a matter of law. And apparently, according to what we're being told from the courthouse, allowing the jury to continue to deliberate. But if the judge has made this ruling, that means that barring an appeal, at least this phase of the case is over for Sarah Palin. But man, I think that she did a lot to shine a light on the internal processes of the New York Times, and it has been pretty ugly.
She really didn't, actually. And it is just, understand, the people that are getting their news from this, they're hearing Sarah Palin was right and she basically won. But the judge did something weird, and so I guess no, the New York Times isn't going to have to pay. But she basically won. That's not what happened. The case was dismissed. The case is being dismissed.
You got some of the folks at the New York Times to admit that they had made mistakes, to apologize for, presenting things that were not as they appear, differently than the underlying facts.
Even that's not really true, because the New York Times had already issued a correction. Like, every aspect of this is just not true. But you have to remember, who is the audience here? The audience believes now Sarah Palin basically won the case. I mean, okay, legally she didn't. And that's the only case there is. But she basically won the case. This is how Fox News works. And you have to remember, this is the hard news hour of Fox News. But what's being mentioned here is just opinion. And it happens to be opinion that doesn't make any sense. If you're just listening to the podcast today, we'll have the clip from Fox that I played on our Instagram, which you can find at David Pakman Show.